Hello Duelists! Cross Souls is almost here, and coming with it is the second round of Infernoid monsters. Infernoids started in Secrets of Eternity, and they're now getting their second batch of monsters here in Cross Souls. We haven't talked a whole lot about them before, but we're going to fix that right now. With the advent of Cross Souls, there are now 10 Infernoid monsters. Each one has a level from 1 to 10. You can't normal summon Infernoids, you can only special summon them, and you do it by banishing other Infernoids from your hand or graveyard. Now where you can summon your Infernoids from and what they do depends on, I'm not going to say rank, because rank is something that Xyz monsters have, but Infernoid monsters have their own internal hierarchy to the deck. I like to think of it almost, if you think of a chessboard, you have your front row of pawns, and then you have bigger pieces, and your king and your queen. These level 1 through 4 Infernoids are like your pawns. Prime is new from Cross Souls, and then Antra, Harmodic, and Petrulia are each from Secrets of Eternity. These monsters can only be summoned from your hand, and they're summoned by banishing one Infernoid from your hand or graveyard. Each has a basic effect that has an impact on the field. Prime here returns a set card on the field to the hand, and it can't be chained. Antra takes out face-up cards back to the hand. Harmodic destroys monsters. Petrulia destroys traps. Those are all basic ways of attacking your opponent. Next up is the second class of monsters. These are akin to more of your knights, rooks, and bishops. Each one can be special summoned from your hand or graveyard by banishing 2 Infernoid monsters from your hand or graveyard. These tend to have higher attack points, and they attack your opponent in indirect ways. They can knock out cards from the hand, they can knock out cards from the extra deck even, which is new from Cross, as Jet here takes out a monster from the extra deck when it deals damage. They can banish cards from anywhere on the field, and in the case of Attendel, you can even attack twice, almost like Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning. And finally, you have your king and your queen in the deck. Infernoid Anunku is kind of like the king. He was originally from Secrets of Eternity, and when you summon him from your hand or graveyard by banishing 3 Infernoids, he can blow away all other monsters on the field. And he can also tribute monsters to negate the effects of spells and traps. Deviatia, on the other hand, she's more of the queen. They're both similar, like a king and a queen can each move in all directions, but the queen can move as many spaces as she wants. Deviatia destroys all spell and traps on the field, which is an effect that doesn't really exist right now in the current advanced format. You have to really work for it most of the time by playing a card like Storm. Deviatia, just by summoning her, you destroy all spells and traps on the field that aren't void spell or traps. And she can tribute other monsters to negate the activation of monster effects and then banish the offending monster. So, the key with Infernoids is that you need enough Infernoids in your deck to pay for summoning all the rest of your Infernoids. And normally the way you're going to do that is by getting them into the graveyard with cards like these. Now, none of these cards can be normal summoned or set. None of the Infernoids can. So, if you use cards like Reasoning and Monster Gate, in conjunction with just a few monsters that can be normal summoned, preferably ones that can send more cards to the graveyard, such as Card Trooper and Ride in Hand of the Lightsworn, you can send every Infernoid that you hit on the way to one of the monsters you can normal summon to the graveyard, regardless of whether or not your opponent gets the right level for Reasoning, or regardless of anything, if you've managed to play Monster Gate. Furthermore, since you're playing with at least one Lightsworn monster, you can take advantage of the fact that you're allowed to play 2 copies of Charge of the Light Brigade, which has a cost that sends cards from the deck to the graveyard, and lets you search out whatever Lightsworn monster you want. In fact, some variants of the Infernoid deck have Raiden in addition to Lila, Lightsworn Sorceress, and Lumina Lightsworn Summoner. So, how many Infernoids should you play with in your deck? Well, a good place to start, it varies for everybody, depending on what decks you intend to play against. But a good place to start is, again, with our chessboard analogy. You get 8 pawns, so first step would be to just go ahead and play 2 each of the level 1 through 4 Infernoid monsters. From there, you can go ahead and play 2 each of the bigger ones. Oh, can't get that other pie. There it is. That gets you 6, and then 1 king and queen. Now that's only 16 Infernoid monsters. That's probably not going to be enough. We need to send them to the graveyard with our card effects, and every one that we draw is one that we can't send to the graveyard. So it's kind of a catch-22. You need to play a lot of them, but you don't want to draw as many of them. So what we can do for this, to help address this, is play more of the ones that can interact with the extra deck. So Seitzmus and Attendel, these are the level 7 and 8 Infernoids respectively. So Seitzmus, when it attacks a monster, can banish something, and Attendel, when it attacks and destroys a monster, can attack again. They're level 7 and 8, so if you have multiples of them on the field, you can combine them afterwards for an Xyz summon of generally a pretty powerful monster. Rank 7 and 8 monsters are usually very strong. One thing you need to be careful of, though, is that you can't have too many Infernoids on the field at the same time. If the total levels and ranks of all the monsters you control, all the effect monsters you control, I'm sorry, normal monsters don't count, all the effect monsters you control are higher than 8, you cannot summon any further Infernoids. So if you have Attendel out, Attendel's level 8, you can summon another copy of Attendel, but you wouldn't be able to summon anything else after that. But if you go ahead and Xyz summon with these two, and then detach one of them to use your Xyz monster's effect, well, you're back down to 8 because you combined the two, and you can bring that Attendel right back. That's the kind of basic combo that you want to look for. Now, we talked about void spells and traps earlier. There are a number of them. Not all of them are from Secrets of Eternity or Cross Souls. Void Trap Hole in particular was from Return of the Duelist, and it's a particularly good card to have right now because it can negate things like Necros of Trishula when it's summoned to stop them from banishing the cards that you need to banish yourself. And the reason the name Void is so important is not necessarily because of Divyati destroying everything that isn't a Void spell or trap. It's because of the new Void Vanishment spell from Cross Souls, which can search out Void spell or traps from your deck. It can also be sent from the field to the graveyard to let your monster act like a DD Warrior Lady and banish itself and anything it battles. Void Expansion gives you free, this is from Secrets of Eternity, gives you free tokens, Infernoid tokens, and it also lets you banish Infernoids from your field to summon more. So that increases the number of possible summons you can make each turn. Void Seer, Secrets of Eternity, protects your Infernoids from anything and can be banished from the graveyard to protect your monster again from card effect, from destruction by card effect. Now, speaking of things that you can banish from your graveyard, since you are sending a lot of cards from your deck to the graveyard, having spells and traps that you can also play from the graveyard could be very handy. We have Void Seer here. Just talked about that. But Breakthrough Skill, a card that's been around for quite a while now, can negate monster effects from the graveyard. So that's very handy. In addition, there's another new card from Cross Souls. This is Galaxy Cyclone. You can play it from your hand to destroy a set spell or trap card, but if it's in the graveyard, you can, during your main phase, banish it to destroy a face-up spell or trap card. Very useful card. If you draw it, you get 2 uses out of it. If you don't, you get a free destruction. All good cards to have around. And the last thing I want to talk about is ways to get around the restrictions placed on summoning your monsters. So you can't normal summon them, and you can't summon them if you have too many of them out. But with these two cards, Eye of the Void and a Wild Monster Appears, you can get around that a little bit. A Wild Monster Appears can be played to summon a monster that you can't normal summon from your hand. Now, all the Infernoids can be tributed off to banish cards from your graveyard, so the fact that you have to put the monster back in your deck doesn't really come into play here. And Eye of the Void can be used during either player's turn to summon an Infernoid that you've drawn from your hand to the field, ignoring its summoning conditions, though its effects will be negated for the turn, so you probably want to play it at the end of your opponent's turn. Infernoids are a very explosive strategy. If you were a fan of Lightsworn back when that came out, or when the Realm of Light Structure deck came out, you might want to go ahead and give Infernoids a try, because a lot of the strategies you already know can be applied to these new cards. And in fact, you can even play with some of your old Iceborne cards as well. The key skill for playing Infernoids is adaptability, because you are relying so heavily on random chance and moving cards from your deck to the graveyard and you don't know what the order of them is. A duelist who is adaptable and knows how to play the cards that he does see in the best way possible will achieve the most success with the deck. If you want to try out Infernoids, you can get the current Infernoids from Secrets of Eternity right now, and you can get the new ones from Cross Souls either at a sneak peek on May 9th or 10th, or when it launches on May 15th. Come on back to our channel. We'll have more strategy videos for Cross Souls. You can check out our strategy site that you can get to off of yu-gi-oh-card.com as well. And you can also follow us on Facebook or Twitter, or both, at official Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG for even more information and some exclusive stuff that you might not find anywhere else. Thanks for watching.